أكاديمية التعريف بالإسلام. أكاديمية التعريف بالإسلام. أكاديمية التعريف بالإسلام.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. This is the first episode, and I have to remind our dear viewers that all this narration, all these facts that you will be hearing throughout this course is prepared by the founder of the Academy and the Dean of the Academy for provocating or for advocating Islam, Dr. Gharama Al-Shihri. What we are doing here, just translating the text and these important facts from Arabic into English. So I thought I will mention this to clarify things from the very beginning. Starting with the first episode, which talks really mainly about the story of creation and how this is miracle, and it shows and reflects the greatness of the Creator, Allah, glorified be He. So it talks about the distinction between what we can describe as the lowest sky and the seven skies, which also been clarified in a very important Quranic verse. It is in the chapter Al-Mulk.
وَلَقَدْ زَيَّنَّا السَّمَاءَ الدُّنْيَا بِمَصَابِيحَ وَجَعَلْنَاهَا رُجُومًا لِلشَّيَاطِينِ وَأَعْتَدْنَا لَهُمْ عَذَابَ السَّعِيرِ.
And we have certainly beautified the nearest heaven with lamps, and have made from them what is thrown at the devils, and have prepared for them the punishment of the blaze.
And here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala states that to us as a human being, that He has created seven what we call layered skies. It consists of layers, you know, the first layer, second layer, and so on until seven. And here the founder, Dr. Gharama Al-Shihri, distinguishes and clarify any confusion between what we call or describe as As-Sama Ad-Dunya in Arabic, which translates the lowest sky, and As-Samawat As-Sab'a, the seven heavens. We'll move now to talk about the question. He raises a question. Is it possible that a human being, even through telescopes, can reach to know or to see these seven heavens, seven skies? The answer is clearly stated in the Holy Quran when Allah addresses a human being saying, well, use your vision and then ask yourself, do you see any mistakes? Then use and reuse your vision, and what will be the end or the result? The vision will come back to you, and in vain, because this great creation of the seven heavens is beyond a human being's conception. It is difficult to conceive. So there's still things that can be distinguished. Human being, yes, reach a far stage in science and technology, but still, when we talk about such great creation, we are talking about the greatness of Allah. Because after all, how do we get to know the greatness of the Lord? By going or contemplating about His creations reflected in the heavens, in the skies, and so on. Then the discussion continues that in the skies, when we talk about the seven skies, and then we talk about al-juz' al-batin min as-sama, and what we call it the inner part of the skies. This reminds us of the chapter, again, still the same chapter, the chapter of Al-Mulk, which says that Allah has created for you, human being, the earth. And He made it to serve you as a human being. So, walk in it and enjoy the provision that Allah has given to you, and remember that to Him will be the return. This is very clearly stated in وَكُلُوا مِنْ رِزْقِهِ وَإِلَيْهِ النُّشُورِ. Enjoy the provision that Allah has given all human beings, but remember, don't get carried away. Remember that one day you will return to Him. About coming back to our planet Earth, the Holy Quran states a very touching verse which says that Allah has made this earth at your call, at your service as a human being. So go and ask for provision and enjoy the provision that Allah is giving you. But remember that to Him we will return. So this leads us to talk that when physicists and astrologists talks about the universe, we should ask this question: what do they mean? In reality, they talked about the lowest sky, as-sama ad-dunya, which we call in Arabic. Of course, this is their limitation. They don't know much about the seven heavens, because this is part of the unseen, what we say in Islam, unseen. So no matter how a person reaches in the field of knowledge, science, technology, but still there are certain things that comes under the name, the unseen, al-ghayb in Arabic, that the person or the human being will find themselves helpless when they contemplate about these things, and they will not be able to know much and the details about such things. Now we talked about the universe, or we as Muslim we call the lowest sky, as-sama ad-dunya. You will be seeing an illustration. It is not a real illustration, but it is what we call simulation. Simulation about the universe, its shape, and also its shape is similar to what we call fabric, or النسيج الكوني, the cosmic tapestry. This is the nearest that can be done to make the picture a little bit clear about the nature and the shape of the universe. This universe that we see consists of billions of galaxies to reflect the greatness of the Creator, Allah. And every spot that we see is a galaxy, and every galaxy is surrounded by billions of stars. The sun, our sun, is just part of these stars. So the Dr. Gharama is stating these things to reflect and to send a message about the greatness of the creation, which reflects the greatness of the Creator. With the advancement of science nowadays, scientists started to use not an ordinary telescopes but giant telescopes, and some of these telescopes are fixed to satellites that are soaring even out of space to trace and to send picture to the Earth. Infrared also is used in this respect. Now we'll talk about this cosmic fabric that has been illustrated in the simulated picture that you have seen. You remember that we said it consists of millions of galaxies, and every galaxy has millions of stars. And this universe that we are constitute only 5%. The 95% are spaces, فراغات in between these galaxies. These spaces is what we call dark energy. Of course, when we talk about Isaac Newton, he is, of course, the discoverer of gravity about 300 years ago, and he used it to describe the universe with what was available of the tools at the time, and that was limited when you talk about it or when you compare it to nowadays. The second matter that we would like to specify that he himself, he used to think that this universe is eternal, eternity. He talks about eternity, and it will not terminate, it will not stop and it will not finish. It means that it has neither time, and there will be no time that this universe will disappear. Of course, they call this theory static universe theory. But science proved the invalidity of such theory later on. But at the time that it was said, there were not a lot of debate about it. But nowadays it has been proven invalid. Atheists, of course, they were rejoiced with this theory, static universe theory, from the point that it strengthened this concept of chance, mere chance, that this life or this universe just came by chance. And among them is Darwin himself. And he just talks about it was just mere chance where pumping particles, we call it ارتطام جزيئات, pumping particles, chemical and a certain chemical component just combined by chance, by mere chance. Again, they are insisting on this chance. But science has proven the invalidity of such theory when you talk about the greatness of the universe. This leads us to talk about the theory of Big Bang theory. They call it the Big Bang theory. That most of the physicists and the astrologists based their work and their researches upon, and that is upon the Big Bang theory. It talks about that this universe used to be under great pressure. Then suddenly, and the time for this about 13.8 billion year, that there were a great explosion, and this spot, that when it exploded, there were no time nor place, and there were no atomic power, and also there were no gravity itself. So suddenly this small spot exploded. The degree at that time during this explosion, it was about 5.5 billion degree. The question that raises now, when did this happen? A scientist talks about 13.8 billion years. We raise a question here. What happened from that Big Bang until nowadays, until our days? When we raise this question, we are talking about 13 billion year. We will not be able to get into the details because after all, we are not physicists nor astrologists. But Dr. Gharama talked about, or he recited Stephen Hawking that died, I think, 2 or 3 years ago, and he was handicapped, as you know. And he was at the same university that Isaac Newton went to, and that is Cambridge, University of Cambridge. This leads us to talk about the first phase, and that is the phase of smoke. After this Big Bang, there were smoke, and this smoke was really hot smoke. As a matter of fact, it was very, very hot, and it used to expand. This means that even the size will change, and the size became so big, and it's still expanding. This calls or rings a bell in our mind that in the Holy Quran there is a verse that says that Allah has created the heavens and there will be kind of expansion in this heaven. And this was revealed 1400 years ago, before the telescopes and so on. I leave it to you, viewers, to have your conclusion about this. Back to the universe. The universe continued to expand, and this leads us to talk about the stages of this universe. The first stage, it is called the hot smoke stage. What is the nature of this smoke? What is the reality of this smoke? And is this smoke similar to the carbon? When we talk about it, we notice that it was not formed out of carbon, and this also raises a question about the greatness of the Creator. Were there oxygen? There were no oxygen also. Were there iron, gold, zinc, copper, or any of these components? Nothing at all. Were there protons or neutrons? And as you know, that this nucleus and the protein and sometimes neutron, it revolves or around itself through what is called electrons. Another question raises, was this smoke with the beginning of the creation of the universe? Where within this smoke, did we have protons or neutrons or electrons? Nothing at all, none of this. So this leads us to ask, so what does this consist of? What is it? Scientists say that it contains certain particles. They call it subatomic particles. This is beyond the imagination, really, because a human mind cannot and will not be able to even imagine or to conceive such thing. Even the electrons and the protons did not form at that time. And the opposite, this smoke consisted of very small particles. Some of the scientists, they use the term quarks to refer to these particles. Among the important events that happened during this stage of hot smoke, that there were millions or billions rather of worlds similar to our worlds, then it disappeared suddenly. How did it disappear? Again, scientists say that we don't know. It is beyond the conception of human mind. But we do have hypotheses. some of these hypotheses that half a billion was a substance. The other half, it was anti-substance, what they call it matter and antimatter. And so after this collision between the matter and antimatter, this collision caused or resulted in the disappearance completely of these substances. And this is mentioned or stated in the Holy Quran.
ثم استوى إلى السماء وهي دخان فقال لها وللأرض ائتيا طوعا أو كرها قالتا أتينا طائعين.
Then he directed himself to the heaven while it was smoke, and said to it and to the earth, "Come into being, willingly or by compulsion." They said, "We have come willingly."
Now the question, is this billion, did it go to be used and utilized in the creation of the 7 heavens? This is a question. The answer, God or Allah knows best. Because He's the one who knows things that comes beyond the conception of human being. So there's still certain thing that will be part of what we mentioned before, the unseen. The first phase, as we mentioned, it started 13.8 billion years ago. And then the stage of the smoke, and this smoke, as we said, it consists of small particles, and this leads us to talk about the second phase. And now we come to talk about the second phase, or stage, if you like. With the expansion of the smoke, and not all expansion and spreading of the smoke, the temperature degree became less, and this caused the appearance of protons. This means that the atoms started to constitute, to form. The question is, what is the smallest atom in these items or components? The smallest is the hydrogen. It consists of proton and also electrons, and this what happened in the beginning of the concept to form hydrogen. Then we talk about gravity, that it was functioning and still functioning to attract, to pull these particles, bring them closer to each other. The beginning, when we talk about the beginning of the Big Bang and the beginning of the formation of the universe, we cite Stephen Hawking, that he said there can be no explanation. He admits that there can be no scientific explanation to this stage. That is, he is referring to the stage when these particles started to be attracted to one another to constitute stars. But we know as Muslim that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the creator of this thing, the heaven and the sky, and He is able to do things that become beyond our conception. The second stage constituted or started to form out of the atoms, hydrogen, gravity, and brought, as we said, these atoms closer to each other. Then these atoms started to revolve around an axis until the stars were formed, not ordinary stars, but giant stars. And they are not like the stars that we see in the skies. They are old skies, bigger than our sun, 1,000 times. Of course, this gravity, it caused the pressure and also the heat that caused into or led into merge between and within these hydrogen atoms, then to constitute later on the helium. And later on, with the continuous pressure and so on, the ion, that the appearance or the constitution of the ion, and since it is stronger compared to other elements, it formed a kind of shield over the core of the stars. And of course, gravity continued to function, and pressure is on the increase, on the rise, to the extent that there was no escape, but that this big star caused to explode. This leads us to the third phase or stage, if you like, and the scientists, they call it supernova. Of course, they call it supernova, referring to the big explosion of these giant stars. These giant stars formed a hydrogen element and helium and carbon and oxygen, and all this led us to the formation of ion. And ion stopped this kind of operation and forced and caused the stars, as we said, to explode. This third stage, that is called supernova, when the stars exploded, it was a big and really horrified explosion that shocked the universe and caused elements to merge into each other due to the high temperature and also to the intense pressure that caused by this collision. Due to this big, they call it supernova, the constitution or formation of elements like gold, silver, zinc, copper, all these elements which are heavier than iron, all of these, they were formed to cause the stars to this giant star to explode. One of the scientists, he's as a matter of fact an astrologist, he said, when you see a ring that is made out of gold, don't belittle its price, the price of this ring, because originally it came or started from supernova in far away time. Glorified be Allah. Now we come to talk about the fourth phase or stage, and that is the formation of the solar or our solar system. The question now is our solar system similar to these giant stars? The answer is no. because these giant stars constitute or are formed out of hydrogen mixed with each other, while the sun, yes, there are some hydrogen, but there are other elements, for example, like gold, copper, zinc, and so on, that constitute the sun. So it is not like these, or not similar exactly like the giant stars. Coming back to talk that this, due to gravity, this our solar system, the element in this solar system, some of them that are really heavier, they gathered on the edges of the sun, and this explained to us about the nature of our solar system. For example, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, which are called, altogether they are called gas planets, because they are formed out of light elements, while the other four, which is nearer to the sun, they constitute, or they have the element of a little bit heavier element, for example, Mercury, Venus, the Earth itself, Mars, and so on. Sun, of course, when we talk about the sun, it is greater and bigger, and it is in the center. After a period of time, the temperature was raised, and we started to have kind of rays that are inflamed, and it became radiant. Now we come to talk about the fifth stage or phase, and that is the formation of the Earth itself. Here we should talk about the formation of nebula cloud. It was really great one that came out, that galaxies came out to be out of this cloud, or they call it nebula cloud. Then the Earth was formed due to the collision of these particles in the space, because in the beginning it was just molten mass, but these particles consisting of stones started to make a collision with each other until it constituted kind of rocks, and then these rocks continued or became bigger to constitute asteroid, and then it became again bigger and bigger until the Earth itself was formed. Not only the Earth, but also the Venus and Mercury and other planets. Of course, when we come to talk about we call it the asteroid belt, الحزام الكوكبي. This belt is similar to what happened to the Earth before it came to be formed in one mass. The meteors used to collide with each other and fall down on the surface of these planets, and this brought a kind of meteors and iron that melted and sank in the depth of the Earth due to what they call the chemical differentiation, التمايز الكيميائي. Beginning with the iron began to gather in the center or the core of the Earth due to the density and the elements which are lighter than that, it floated on the or became on the surface to constitute the layer, the first layer of the earth that came to be cool and to constitute the beginning of the formation of the earth. So, as has been mentioned, the earth was formed due to these rocks and sand and dust, and due to the increase in the temperature, and became one big mass, and became a kind of and that has a kind of gravity that attracts meteors from the sky. Then it comes to collide with the earth. This continued for 25 million years, and the earth became like an oven that is boiling in a very intense way, and all these matters and particles was melted within the core and became a liquid material. Then, as for the heavy particles, it became, or it came to the center for the iron, and the quantity of the iron became or came to the core of the earth, equivalent to the size of the moon itself twice. Of course, iron has the advantage that it has kind of magnetic power, that when the center of the earth became full of this iron, a kind of magnetic, caromagnetic or electromagnetic power started to be formed. When we talk about this magnetic, we notice that it has two poles, one in the north and one in the south. And this changed the history. How? In the sense that when we compare the Earth to Mars, we notice that due to the existence of this magnetic and the lack of this magnetic in Mars, we notice that when this solar wind comes, when it comes to Mars, it will cause a lot of harms. Unlike when it comes to the Earth, due to the existence of magnetic poles, so these solar wind, which are harmful, are scattered and dispersed and scattered away from the Earth, thus keeping life. Now we come to talk about the gaseous discharge. These gases started to emerge and started to come out of the core of the Earth due to volcanoes, and this is the beginning of the formation of the atmosphere due to the collision that caused a kind of lower region on the surface of the Earth, and this debris that was caused due to the kind of this gases formed the moon itself. The next stage in the formation of the Earth, that these volcanoes used to throw out clouds of gases, and it's not an ordinary gas, it is also toxic gases, and out of these volcanoes came the carbon, nitrogen, and also smoke, and of course there were neither oxygen nor ozone in it. Then we had what is called the ultraviolet radiation. This radiation was really toxic, and it reached the surface of the earth, so there were no chance for life. Of course, one can say that due to the harm of the solar wind, that this ultraviolet radiation may be prevented, that it will reach to the surface of the earth, which is, of course, might cause the destruction of life. Now, this stage, the scientists, they say that there were planets nearer in size of our planet. The name of this planet is Theia. And they say that this Theia collided with the Earth, and the result of this collision, there were kind of merge between Theia and planet Earth. That caused another kind of ball, if you say, that it is the Earth on which we live, and that part of this Earth spread in the universe on the form of dust and debris. And this debris again helped to started to gather itself until it became the moon itself. In other words, that the moon used to have effects on the surface of the earth due to the concept of ebb and flow. Scientists, they also say that the power of this ebb and flow that comes or caused by the moon on the surface of the earth used to be more intense than what is happening now. The question raises why? Why is this? They answer by saying that the moon used to be nearer to the earth. The second thing, they say that the revolving of the earth used to be quicker than what is happening. In other words, that the duration of the day used to be 6 hours only, and this caused that the effect of the moon on the surface of the earth, it could become kind of positive, and this what caused the kind of disformation of the surface of the earth, and this ebb and flow caused the earth to become slower in its revolving until we reach to the stage that the day became 24 hours. What happened after the existence of the water? How the water was found and where did it come from? They answer, they say either it came from the volcanoes, or the kind of they call it a kind of steam that comes out of these volcanoes. They also talk about comets, that it would come to the solar system and come nearer to the earth, and out of these comets that come to the surface of the earth, that caused this kind of water. So in other words, we are talking about two theories, and every theory has its supporters and so on. So they talk that this kind of operation it caused the rain to fall down. So some of them they talk about volcanoes, others they talked about comets. Now we come to the last stage, the existence of life, when life started to exist. The existence of life did not come just once, no, it came in stages. Every stage, Allah, glorified be He, creates certain species of His creatures that suit to live at that stage and time in order to pave the way for the creation and the existence of human being. The last of these species was the dinosaurs, for example, and certain plants. Then when the earth became suitable and prepared to create the human being, then the human being was created. The Holy Quran talked about the lower sky, and also talked about the 7 heavens or 7 skies. And sometimes it talks about or describing clouds as a sky, as using the word sky. And this is normal in the Arabic language, in the sense that whatever is above you is called sky. And that is why clouds, which are in the sky, the atmosphere in the sky. But when we say that the lower sky, so we are referring to the sky that is just above us, that we can see with our eyes. As for the heavens that we cannot see, and that is the 7 heavens, they are called the 7 heavens, and the Holy Quran used the word heavens, the 7 heavens. And when the name of the lower sky is mentioned, it is mentioned by name, that it is the lower sky. The question that was raised is that modern science says that the creation of the lower sky happened or took 13.8 billion years, while the Holy Quran says it took 6 days. Is this kind of contradiction between the two views? Not at all, because the Arabic language is so vast and there are connotations. Every word in Arabic has certain connotations that refer to. So when we say day in Arabic, yawm, we don't refer to a 24 hours. Witness to this that we say doomsday, day of judgment. Is it 24 hours? No, not at all. But it is kind of indication of time, stages. So this clarifies the misconcept that happened about these two views. So it is just a use. When we say a day, it's not specifically a day that we understand. For example, the day of judgment, the day of reckoning, the day of accountability. We use it, the word day, but as a matter of fact, if we calculate it based on the time, it's not like our day that we understand 24 hours. It is just kind of it shows the greatness of the Arabic language, that the same word has many connotations, and I'm sure this will clarify the misconception about this issue. Now we talk about an illustration that I'm sure you will see. This talks about the stages, that when we talk about the first day and the second day, that is the creation of the lower sky. Then we talk, this illustration shows the third and the fourth day, that is the creation of earth. And then when we come to the fifth and the sixth day, we talk about the creation of the heaven skies and the blessings that Allah bestowed upon earth. This explains the stages that the creation gone through to what it is today. Now a question will raise itself. What happens to the lower sky when the earth was created? The answer is that the lower sky continued in its formation. Witness to this verse in the Holy Quran, which says that maybe you contemplate about the creation of the earth in 2 days, and you try to make associates with the Lord of the two worlds. The question again raises, do we have an evidence that Allah has created the lower sky before the creation of the earth? The answer comes in the Holy Quran when Allah states that, are you more in complication and creativity, your creation itself, or the creation of the heavens, which Allah built up, then raised up, then leveled, and became the timing that of the night and the noon. And after that, Allah paved the earth. So it proved that the earth was created after the skies. How do we know? Another question will raise itself. How do we know that what is meant here is the lower sky? The answer is clear, because Allah talks about the day and the sun and the moon, and it is known that these phenomenon exist in the lower sky. This refers us to the verse in the Holy Quran is called the chapter Fussilat, that says that maybe you disbelieve or you doubt the creation of the earth in 2 days, and you try to make associates with the Lord of the two worlds, He who made and created this the earth and blessed it and destined its provision in 4 days. Allah glorified be He. Another question: is this, or does it mean that Allah created the earth in 2 days, then blessed it in 4 days? This means a total of 6 days? No, not at all. This is not what is meant by this verse. What is meant is that Allah built it in 2 days, then the blesses and the destiny of the provision in 2 days. The total is 4 days, and these 4 days are equal. And there is a similitude here. For example, a man will build a house in 2 months, just the skeleton of the house. Then they call it a skeleton. So it took 2 months. Then he came to do the finishes, which is important to complete the house, like plumbing and electricity, and it took him 2 months, 2 months. So he can say that he built the house in 2 months. And then he prepared the house in 4 months. So this is really what is meant. Allah glorified be He, created the earth in 2 days, and then He came up to the sky while it was smoke and addressed it and the earth, saying, do you come voluntarily or by force? So they said, we are coming in complete obedience to you, O Allah. This refers to the 5th and 6th day, when Allah addressed the earth and the 7 heavens that they came in obedience. Witness to this, the verse which says that in 7 he finished the 7 skies in 2 days, referring to the 5th and the 6th day. And then after that he revealed or destined the whatever related to every sky, and kind of made a kind of ornament for these skies by using of the stars as a kind of ornament. Then we come to the lower sky that was created in 2 days, the first and the second day, and Allah as a kind of ornament destined that it will be ornamented with stars, and this took place, the total of this took 4 days, and this is what remained of the creation. This can constitute an answer to the atheist who doubts the number of the days of the creation, and that the Quran contradicts itself in this respect. With this we come to the end of the first episode. Looking forward to seeing you and talking to you in a very coming important and motivating episodes. Until then, we leave you in the blessings and with the blessings of Allah.
أكاديمية التعريف بالإسلام أكاديمية التعريف بالإسلام أكاديمية التعريف بالإسلام